Okay, I apologize that these pages are out of order. I got a little, exuberant, I guess, in putting the package together. And these are the two new pages, and they came in right at the very front of the presentation instead of at the end. Of course, these are the two pages I was going to talk about anyway, so I guess in some ways it's a moot point. Um, anyway, the work we're doing is really going well. I'm starting to have a lot of presentations with various staff groups. They're all being, it's been all being very, very well received. So, a couple of the things then that I'm adding in this section is to bring some clarity. This particular page is an illustration of how we would propose that the tax rate that we're currently collecting right now related to the bond levy there is 10.159. You can see right in the middle of the page up here. And that's the one that we know is going to be maturing over the next couple of years. And so again, our proposal is to be focused on not increasing overall tax rate. In fact, as I am already working with bond attorneys on ballot language and stuff too, what we are currently sitting on, the ballot question would start with the phrase without increasing the tax rate of 10.159 mils currently being levied by Falcon School District. So that is language that the bond attorney is comfortable with already as well. So again, so in December of 2015, so just last month, recall that we set the mill levy rates. That's our normal pattern. Mill levy rates are set every December. They're assessed to taxpayers or owners of their property of record as of December 31st of that year, and then those taxes are collected in the ensuing months of the spring of the following year. So again, just last month, we recognized our assessed valuation growth to $751 million. And again, this is a group of what I call the actionable mill levy rates. Our total mill levy rate has the general fund mill levy, which is 24 mills, a little over 24 mills. That, of course, though, is totally fixed by the School Finance Act of 1994. It's been fixed for all those years. So there's nothing we can do to increase or decrease that. The only other unactionable, if you will, rate is the abatement rate, and that's unactionable only because it's just formulaic. It's talking about what taxes were abated in the prior year and make sure that that's collected this year. So these are the portions of the mill levy that we take action on, specific action on every year. Again, the 2006 MLO is what we worked with last year when we asked the voters in the 2014 election to allow us to use some of those funds for operating purposes in ballot measure 3A. So that measure passed. We've been consistently assessing 9.80 mils for that, and that, as you can see, projected to continue. So again, all the action is happening over here in the bond levy. Historically, if you recall last month what we talked about, we actually decreased that mill rate from what had been 11.2 for several years down to the 10.159. So it was a full mill reduction in that particular item. And a mill may not sound like a lot, but really when we're talking 21 mills of this actionable, that's a 5% change in that. So it's also not really anything to sneeze at either. What we'll see happen then again though is as we go into next year is this bond levy will start to go down as those bonds mature and we reach maturity and we pay those bonds out in 2017. And so again, what we're proposing then is that we start to migrate this over to a new MLO in the November election, and you see how it would layer in so that we never exceed the 10.159 for the combination of these two pieces. And then what we demonstrate then over here on the side is that these two in conjunction then with the original mill levy override will stay consistent and have no increase in these out years. So that's kind of what we're proposing, and that's kind of how I wanted to illustrate that. Does that make sense? Any questions on that page?
So just as a taxpayer, if I were to vote for that, my taxes basically on my property would stay about the same. But if the community says no, then that portion of our tax goes away after 17? Is that the difference?
That's true.
So that's what we're asking. We're going to end up asking voters either keep it the same like it is, let us keep using it, or
we're giving the opportunity to maintain that investment again, and allowing us to do a lot of good things, which we've talked a lot about, and I'll show you some more details about one of the priorities in particular. If you recall that we had four priorities is what we're looking for. We have the building opportunities, we're calling it, for the regular high schools, the three regular high schools, as the first priority, and that's to recognize that there's a couple things that facility-wise they need in their buildings, and that would kind of help get them pretty equivalent to what each of them need going forward. Second priority, of course, is to reinvest in our current facilities that we have. We have 22 buildings, educational buildings throughout the district, of varying ages, and I'll get to that here in a minute. And third priority that we're asking for is to continue some investment in the teacher compensation, which we already started again with the 2014 3A question that we're using that 2006 MLO money for now. And then the fourth priority being to build two new buildings really at elementary capacity. So yes, if that were not to pass and these mill rates would go down, this new one would not be coming on board, and so the overall taxes would be going down.
And that's after a tax decrease of 1 mil
Right.
this year.
Exactly.
So it's similar to what the city offered us and the voters approved, what was it, last November?
Just last month, yeah.
Yeah.
Or I mean, last November, yeah.
November.
15.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
True.
Right.
Yeah,
Whether
you
they
could draw
continue
that
to-
parallel,
Mhm, yeah.
for sure. Okay, any other questions on this slide and illustration? All right. This one. Zoom in on this, Matt. But before I do that, let me set it up a little bit. You guys know I'm a spreadsheet guy, right? So I'm really happy and excited about this. So forgive me if my excitement isn't shared. But again, priority 2 is to reinvest in our current facilities, and what we want to do was be able to take a portion of what we could generate in revenue wise and invest that with a 10-year certificate of participation instrument, so we could generate a good size of money to do a current investment pool that would be targeted right now at about $20 million to reinvest in buildings. So the big question was how would we distribute that amongst the buildings? In earlier presentations, I've indicated to you that I wanted to have some recognition of both building size and the age of the buildings. We have a pretty wide range of the age of the buildings in the district, and with our newest one having just been built last year with RMCA, and our oldest one you'd see on the list here being Patriot Learning Center, what we're calling the Falcon Legacy Campus, built in 1952. So that's a wide range. So if I can zoom in a little bit now here, what you'll see is I started to just look go back to the left, I'm sorry, please, at the core buildings, the core instructional buildings, the regular buildings, not the modular space. So the modular space is excluded from this analysis. And so what we did was look at the square footage totals of all of the original square footage of these buildings and when that was built, then adding on some buildings that had additions and renovations, and where those spaces added on to what we get to really the current now total size of that building. It's really interesting to look at a school like Evans. You can see it opened in 1976 with only 9,400 square feet and has been really grossed up in size to a 53,000 square foot building now, with 4 separate renovations over the year. So that gave me kind of an initial base allocation method of total square footage that I could use. But I wanted to again then weight that allocation by the age of the building. So I calculated here a weighted average of the year of the age of the building. So again, the Evans is a good example, having that original build in 1976, but you can see these additions in 79, 81, 2000, and 2003 for various pieces of that building. So calculate that to a weighted average age of having been built in 1988. Okay. I take that across again the full group, and I come down here to say our average building is now about 16 years old. Having the weighted average is the year 2000. So I do the initial allocation of $20 million. You can see down here at the bottom, and allocating that up through all the buildings. Again, originally based on just the square footage allocation, and then we start weighting that for the age. The weights for the age then I determined would range between either 0 or 200%. If someone would a brand new building would actually be decreased. The older buildings would get increases of their initial allocation based again on their age. So I'll continue to use Evans as a good example right there at the top. The initial allocation would be at $679,000, but being in 1988 is 12 years older than the average age of the buildings in the district. So we would gross that up, and the calculations that I'm using at this point are 6% per year, different from the mean. So 6 years times or 6% times 12 years is 72. So that ends up as 172% of that base allocation. So it gets them from 679,000 to $1.1 million. So as I've gone over this with a lot of folks before presenting it to you, people seem to like how that was recognizing the fact that that was an older building, and a lot of these were older buildings and needed that refurbishment to a larger degree than some of the newer ones did. When I did that weighting, it had the unintended effect of trimming the overall investment down to just below $19 million here, which of course wasn't the intention. So I redistributed that $1 million on pro rata on what we ended up with there to come back to a full $20 million allocation along this pattern here.
So the,
Go ahead.
so the,
I love spreadsheets. This is good. This is good stuff.
So the additions to the school, the square footage,
Yeah.
are those the bunkers? Oh, modulars, sorry about that.
No. No. Remember I said that I specifically excluded all the modular
Oh,
space
okay.
for an entire
I'm sorry, I
analysis.
didn't hear it.
So these are additions to the main facility, to the permanent facility, if you will.
Okay, so, but this proposal will eliminate as many modulars, so to speak,
It it could. I honestly can't say that. If you look down here in the lower, if we can zoom in on that lower box, Matt, in terms of the intended target spends, that's not even necessarily listed as what we are initially intending these monies to be spent for. If that's what the school may decide on, that could be considered. But really, we're talking about with this priority, this pool number 2 priority, as the reinvestment and the refurbishment of that current facility. Okay, not the expansion of it, because in most cases, in order to eliminate some of that modular space, we'd have to be expanding. Okay, so again, back down on that lower box, the intended target spends again are this. The first column here targets what I call kind of mid-building life assets, the assets that aren't designed to last the full 30, 50 years of a school building: chairs, carpet, desks, paint, lockers, things like that. The second column here is some efficiency and optimization type of opportunities that we would suggest. IT infrastructure, we know wireless is just exploding. We're needing a lot more wireless connections in all of our buildings. Jack has talked a lot about LED lighting and what we could do with that in terms of providing some efficiencies in our utility bills. So HVAC and RTUs, etc. And then the column on the right is the aesthetics and functional improvements we could do. How is the building just basically looking from aesthetic, and then how is it functioning in terms of parking and entry, the ingress and egress to the building. So those are the things that we're going to go in, and I say we, it's really going to be Jack and Melissa having these discussions with them. But again, having that discussion with the schools and say, okay, here's kind of what we observe, but tell us what do you want to do. And those are discussions we'd have throughout the course of the spring then. So we could say, for instance, if you scroll over to the right there, Matt, and look at Sand Creek High School. Sand Creek High School right now has an allocation of $2.7 million. That is a nice amount of money to reinvest and refurbish that building. And those discussions will happen at that school level, again with participation, advice, and guidance from the facilities group and from planning. To say, okay, what do we want to do?
Okay, how long does it take to get that 20 million to do this? Is this going to be over time? It's not going to be all in 1 year. All this is going to come in and happen, right?
No, we would be getting that, because effectively we would be again entering in this financing instrument, a new certificate of participation, which would be a 10-year repayment. So we would get that money right up front, that $20 million right up front, as soon as we finish that, and then pay it back over the next 10 years. And again, the reason we want to target a 10-year term is so that we can do it again in 10 years, and so we can get into a cycle of good reinvestment and refurbishment of these buildings. And that would all happen within this same tax stream, so we'd never have to really be increasing taxes in the future to do this. So it kind of would get us in a great pattern all without having to even increase the taxes from where they're at right now.
I don't know how we could, share that with the public in a way which is catchy. But
That's why we have this guy, Matt Meister, here behind him. He's a catchy guy.
that's amazing. That's very good. That's good governance. That really is.
Yeah, I'm elated over this because a lot of the discussions that I've had, myself or Ron have had with the principals and the zone leaders about this is going in and doing some refurbishing or refreshment of the buildings, but we really don't have the dollars to be able to do that. If we can come up with something like this, I'm a limited member of Brett's spreadsheet tribe, but nowhere near like this. And so when he first shared this with me, I was pretty excited about it because being a former CFO, I looked at this and said, well, this is awesome. It's a way for us to really be able to have a recurring investment in our own physical plant.
And will you let us know what the prioritizations are of the builds, such as security, safety, health,
Yeah,
aesthetics?
exactly. One of the things that we'll go back and do is do a follow-up from our fall visits when we go out and visit with the building principals and trying to establish their needs. But it was somewhat limited because we really don't have a lot of the resources to be able to do it. It'd be kind of nice to know that, it takes Sand Creek of an allocation of $2.7 million. I imagine I can have some pretty good discussions with Ron Hamilton and Sean as well to be able to say, okay, how do we want to retrofit this building for education of today and tomorrow?
I think if I could speak into this, what I'm pleased with is I see a proactive maintenance and instead of allowing our buildings to degrade and then do what I call catastrophic repairs. I appreciate it because it's cheaper to fix it now than it is when it fails. And the other thing I also like that you have considered the 10-year payback on the money. The interest savings of not stretching the debt out on a 30-year bond is incredible. And I really appreciate that. And this will allow us to get ahead of our maintenance problems and won't end up with the crisis repairs like we saw at Horizon, where we're just basically fixing chronically leaking roof. It just was a waste of money, and now we've got it right. So I really appreciate all the insight into this in the proactive sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. We're just about, of course, barely into this process, but everyone who is from the outside who's already been privy to this is really excited and getting a lot of why didn't I think of that type of ideas to an approach like this where we're layering in a 25-year instrument and a 10-year instrument and then also having a piece towards operations, getting a lot of and a lot of well wishes that say hey, this should work, this is really a great plan.
It's very forward thinking.
Other questions?
Just speaks to this power of Excel, right?
Power of Excel. Innovation.